Hey everybody, it's Rabbit. Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be doing a War Thunder lore video on the top 5 rarest vehicles in the entire game of War Thunder. Now, when you mention rare vehicles in the game of War Thunder, a lot of players' minds will naturally drift towards things like the E100, a very rare vehicle that often goes for up to thousands of dollars on the Gaijin marketplace. You also have some older vehicles that were removed for being ahistorical, like the Flak Panzer 341, and even some bugged event vehicles like the Surblinde for France that a lot of people didn't get because the event itself just didn't work correctly. On top of that, there is also a plane that is only generally given out to Gaijin employees and close friends of the company. However, none of these hold a candle in terms of overall rarity to any of the 5 vehicles that we're going to talk about today. Interestingly enough, it was very easy to figure out what were the 5 rarest vehicles, but it was a little bit harder to track down some details. In this video, not only am I going to be telling you the 5 rarest vehicles in War Thunder, but I'm also going to be telling you who owns them. That's how rare they are. You might rightfully ask how I can definitively know what the rarest vehicles are in the game. After all, there are a lot of them. There's some kind of metric you would have to use, but it turns out there actually isn't, and this is a great piece of War Thunder trivia. In 2019, War Thunder held the YouTube Cup, and in the YouTube Cup, one of the top prizes for the winning team was that every player on the team got to essentially clone a top tier vehicle, or at least top tier at the time. These cloned vehicles, while statistically identical, were effectively different vehicles in the game files. They had different camos, and they even had a little cup icon on their name, so if you saw them in this kill feed or on the scoreboard, you would know they were a cup vehicle. There were a total of 6 players on the winning team, and out of those 6 players, only 2 of them chose the duplicate vehicle, so that resulted in 5 individual vehicles being added to the game files, one of which is owned by exactly 2 people, and 4 of which is owned by exactly 1 person. Very notably, the cup was actually filled with content creators, so the winning team G Squad, all 6 members have YouTube channels, and many of them have Twitch channels as well. And this started a little bit of an adventure for me to try and see where all of these vehicles ended up. So this prompted a little exploration on my part. Originally, I didn't think this would be that difficult. I got the list of content creators fairly easily and what vehicles they had. I started checking out their channels and doing quick searches, basically just going through and trying to get footage of any of the vehicles that I could. And one by one, like Thanos collecting Infinity Stones, I was able to find footage of each of the rarest vehicles in the game of War Thunder to put them all in one place. Except for one. There is one very specific vehicle that is so rare that there is currently, as far as I can tell, no footage of it ever being used in an actual match. Since all of them are content creators, I will have links to their YouTube channels in the description, and if I am using video footage from one of their channels, I will have a link to the video I am linking in the description. These are all skilled players, and I would recommend, if you do want to see these vehicles in action, checking them out for yourself instead of relying on the clips I'm using here. The 5th rarest vehicle in War Thunder, and the only vehicle selected by 2 players, is the Cup M1A1. One of the players that selected it was CathFawr, and CathFawr does have a YouTube channel, although is considerably more active on Twitch. That being said, I couldn't find any videos of Cath playing the Cup M1A1. However, the other player that chose the Cup M1A1, RotorHead7, also has a YouTube channel and actually has a video of both RotorHead and Cath in the same match with the same vehicle. You can actually see in the scoreboard at the very beginning, it has 2 Cup M1A1s listed up top. So both of these vehicles are actually featured in this map. So not only do we have confirmation that both of these content creators received the Cup M1A1, but we actually have confirmation of both of them using it in the same match, which is pretty cool. So feel free to check out that video if you're interested. Now, for the next 4 rarest vehicles, you might think they're all essentially one of a kind. How do you sort them by rarity? Well, as you'll see as we're going down the list, it's not as hard as you might think. The first vehicle, and if anybody is familiar with Cup vehicles, is one that most people are probably going to be aware of, is the Cup T-80U, and that is because this vehicle is in possession of ObbBawZ. ObbBawZ is one of the larger and more prolific War Thunder content creators. Most players are at least familiar with some of his videos, and he also features it in not 1 but 2 separate videos. This footage is from the most recent video. Obviously it is linked in the description, but ObbBawZ is the kind of name that within the War Thunder community, I don't think I really have to say that much more about him. I would say show him some love, but honestly most of you probably already already have, and you should continue doing so. For the third rarest vehicle in the game of War Thunder, we have the Cup Leopard 2A5. The Cup Leopard 2A5 was selected by SlickBee, who currently runs the channel Slick Plays, along with a few other YouTube and Twitch channels. The footage in the background is actually from as little as 8 months ago, so Slick has actually been playing the Cup Leopard 2A5 more recently than basically any of the other versions of these vehicles. On top of that, it is also some nuke gameplay in one of the rarest vehicles in the entire game, and while Slick doesn't have as much of an audience as ObbBawZ, the vehicle has been played a fair bit, and of course does have one of the most recent appearances that we've seen of any of these vehicles, and spoiler, one of the most recent appearances we will see of any of these vehicles. So feel free to check that video out if you're interested. The second rarest vehicle in all of War Thunder is the Cup Challenger 2, and the reason why this is the second rarest might seem a little odd, because the Cup Challenger 2 is currently in the possession of OxygenThief. While uploads on Oxy's channel are pretty infrequent, it is still what I would call active. However, I imagine a lot of people will be familiar with Oxy from Oxy's appearances in the various English language dev streams, because Oxy actually got a job with War Thunder and does some of the community relations stuff. Now, it might seem weird for this to be the second rarest given how popular the person that owns it is, but if you look at the number of games played, you will see very quickly why it is so low. It has only been played in 2 games that StatShark could pull, which means your odds of seeing it in an actual match are basically 0. While some of the other vehicles feature on average about 300 to 600 games, this has featured in 2 games, which means the number of people that have seen the Cup Challenger 2 in a live match is only a few dozen. In fact, the video on Oxy's channel that features the Cup Challenger 2 is basically just features it as a footnote in the capstone video for the Great Britain Tech Tree review. So it isn't even really prominently featured in that particular video other than a brief mention. So while this is possessed by a fairly well-known figure in the War Thunder community, it's also not very often played by that figure. And this brings us to our last vehicle, the single rarest vehicle in the entire game of War Thunder, the War Thunder Cup 2019 Super Mystère B2. The Super Mystère B2, you will probably notice I don't have any footage in the background showing the vehicle, and you will also notice that I'm not using the StatShark image. This vehicle does not currently appear in StatShark. That is how few games have been played in it. As far as I can tell, there is no recorded footage of this vehicle ever being used in a game. The content creator that received it, TheOrangeDoom, as far as I can tell, stopped making War Thunder content about the same time that the Cup happened. So as far as I'm aware, there was no videos that TheOrangeDoom ever made of this vehicle, and I'm not even entirely certain TheOrangeDoom ever actually played the vehicle. So the Cup Super Mystère B2 is a whole other level of rare, because as far as I can tell, it is owned by exactly one person who doesn't seem to have ever played it. To put it simply, there are rare vehicles, there are super rare vehicles, and none of those hold a candle to how rare it would be to see a Cup Super Mystère B2 in one of your games. It is easily the rarest vehicle in the entire game of War Thunder. And that wraps up our little look at the legend of the YouTube Cup vehicles. Personally, I found this was quite interesting to go back and explore all the vehicles and the content creators and where they were now and how active they were with the game. And I also found it interesting to go back and watch the old footage of the YouTube Cup 2019, because in the YouTube Cup 2019, not only did they have ground forces, but they also had naval, which is kind of funny because naval has been completely excluded from essentially all of the modern tournaments. So going back and seeing the more triathlon style tournament that featured this mode that has been basically excluded from all modern tournaments was actually kind of fun and nostalgic. On top of that, several of the videos that I featured clips of here are actually kind of fun to watch too, for the same reason, because they show a much older build of the game outside of obviously the one that was only from 8 months ago. So in general, it is pretty cool to go back and see the state the game was in, both at the time the YouTube Cup was created and see some of the footage from these vehicles when they were first added. With that being said, I was a little disappointed that I wasn't able to find anything on the Cup Super Mystère B2. As far as anybody knows, the vehicle does exist. It is currently in the game files. That's why I can find an image of it on the War Thunder wiki, and if you do have an asset viewer, you can check it out. But from what I can tell, nobody has ever seen that plane in an actual game. Also, if any of you guys are interested in the War Thunder YouTube Cup 2019, I will have the highlight reel posted. As far as I can tell, it's still on their main channel, so feel free to check that out. And as I said in the beginning of the video, all of these are content creators. I do have links to all of their channels and the videos that I'm using clips from in the description. So if you're interested in seeing the full video, you should definitely check it out. If you like this little delve into War Thunder lore, a like and subscribe always helps out the channel. As always, danke bitte tschüss.